Welcome to From Center Ice. My name is Courtney and I'm tired. I'm sorry this video is a little delayed. The other ones have been up right after game time, but I did the smart thing last night and I did not watch game 7 just alone in my house because then my whole night would have been sad and this Leafs team doesn't deserve to take away my whole night. But I can't keep putting it off forever. I do have to talk about this game eventually, so that's what I am here to do. I only had one question going into game 7. Can they do it? No, they can't. The Toronto Maple Leafs lost 3-1 to the Montreal Canadiens in game number 7, meaning that the Canadiens move on and they are going to play the Winnipeg Jets. And it's very fitting that the Habs won 3-1 because that is the lead that the Toronto Maple Leafs had in this series at one time. Remember that? Remember when there were good feelings? You know, Jack Campbell had a shutout? That seems about 3 years ago now, doesn't it? And then we came back for game 5 and they lost it. And I was here saying if they can't win game 6, I don't see them winning game 7. And here we are. They lost game 7 because this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. So for the last time this season, let's go over the goals, shall we? The first period ended scoreless, both teams 0-0. And for the first time in this series, the Leafs actually had a fairly decent first period. And maybe it just looked fairly decent because games 1 through 6 looked like absolute garbage to start the game. But the two teams looked like they were on somewhat even footing there in the first, even though the Leafs were outshot 12-8. The Habs and the Leafs were both playing a little tentative. It looked like neither team wanted to make that first mistake. So it's not overly surprising that this game went into the first intermission scoreless, but that's how it was. And then 3 minutes and 2 seconds into the second period, Mitch Marner has the puck. Mitch Marner no longer has the puck. Brendan Gallagher has the puck and he's shooting it 5-hole on Jack Campbell and the puck goes in 1-0 Montreal. And that was a bad one. There's really no other way to put that. That goal cannot go in, and it did. I don't blame Jack Campbell at all for the loss in this game or the loss in this series, but that puck just simply can't go in. But it's only one. The Leafs can score a goal. They've scored many goals in this series. But 15 minutes and 25 seconds into the second period, after the officials finally called a penalty, this one on Pierre Engvall for holding, and yes, it was a blatant penalty. I said out loud before the whistle even blew, you can't do that. But a lot of Leafs Nation was upset because there were so many missed calls throughout that first period and the first half of the second period, and I'm sure there were missed calls both ways. I'm not saying there wasn't, but it's just beyond frustrating. But that's playoff officiating for you, and we went over it last video that it's been horrible this year, so what are you gonna do? But again, at 15:25 of that second period, Montreal is on the power play, and Carey Price gets a goal because of course he does. And it just barely goes off of his leg and past Jack Campbell. So with the second period winding down, the Toronto Maple Leafs were once again in a 2-0 hole. The Leafs actually outshot the Habs in the second period. It was 7-6. Woohoo! So then you enter the third period and it is do or die time for the Maple Leafs. They need 2 goals to tie it, 3 goals to win if they don't give up another one. And Carey Price just simply makes the saves that he needed to make. There were some huge saves in there. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but for most of the time he just had to be in position and doing his job, and he did that. So the third period remained scoreless mostly. 17 minutes and 22 seconds into that final frame there, Tyler Toffoli with the empty net goal, 3-0 Montreal. And I know a lot of us were saying that we were speechless after game 6, and we probably said it after the first period of game 7, and probably after the second period of game 7, but once that empty netter went in, it just kind of sealed the fate because you feel like they're not going to score 3 goals to tie this up. I mean, we've seen it before, but with the way that they were playing, the way that they've played the last half of this series, you just you knew they weren't going to do it. So that's when true speechlessness really settled in, because really, what can you say after that? And then, just for funsies, 18 minutes and 24 seconds into that final frame, here come the Maple Leafs! Here is the comeback. William Nylander gets on the board, 3-1 Montreal. And that's how it ends. Because they couldn't simply just get shut out. They just had to get that one goal, and then that little tiny piece in the back of your brain goes, oh my god, what if they do this? But they didn't, because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs and they don't win Game 7s. Or playoff series, for that matter. You could say that they tried to come back in the third period. They did outshoot Montreal 16-5, but I knew it. You knew it. Going into that third period, they weren't going to tie this thing up. They weren't going to win it. For the third straight game, there was no fire in their eyes. There was no compete level to their game. They were dead. And that's really the story of this series. It was there for the taking for Toronto. They had a 3-1 lead on paper. Coming into this series, they had the better team. Jack Campbell had better numbers than Carey Price did. You look at all of that, you say Toronto's going to win this series. But absolutely full credit to the Montreal Canadiens. They were in that 3-1 hole. They thought that their season was over, but they also had the belief in their team, and they had that compete. They knew if they go out there and play hard, they can win a game. And that's all it takes. You just win one game, and then you move on to the next game. All of a sudden it's Game 7, and you just have to win a hockey game. And that's what they did. They outworked the Leafs, they outmuscled the Leafs, they just out-competed the Toronto Maple Leafs. They looked like the team that wanted it more. It didn't look like the Leafs wanted to win this series after they went up 3-1. There was no desire in their game. Sure, they came back from multi-goal deficits in 2 straight games, but then what? They lost in overtime. Both of them off of careless mistakes, one a minute into overtime. After Game 4, with that 3-1 series lead, you look at it and you go, wow, they still have 3 games to close this out here. All they have to do is win 1 out of 3. They just won 3 games in a row. They should be able to do this. But that effort we saw in Game 5, and then the effort we saw in Game 6, and then the effort we saw in Game 7, this team deserved to lose this series. And if we're being honest here, Montreal deserved to win this series. They played the way that they needed to play to beat the Maple Leafs. Plain and simple. They let them take their shots. They disrupted them when they could. Carey Price made some huge saves throughout the series, and otherwise he was just simply solid. And they waited for this nervous and jittery Leafs team to make mistakes, and then they capitalized on them. And the Leafs just simply had no answer for that. And especially in that game last night, it just looked like they were playing scared. If they had the puck and a Montreal defender was coming toward them, it was like, oh no, hot potato, get rid of it. They didn't want to make a mistake. They looked like they didn't want to get hit. They just didn't want to play hockey from the looks of it. It was horrible to watch. I'm sure it was a fun game for Habs fans to watch because your team was eventually winning, but that just wasn't a fun game of hockey. I'm curious for fans outside of the 2 fan bases, if you watched that game, was it fun? I know it's very easy for me to say that it wasn't rooting for the Leafs, and I don't really know how to look at it objectively like that, so if there are any outside fans watching this, please tell me if this was a fun game to watch. The Leafs just simply were not good enough. They did not get enough from their stars. Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner combining for 1 goal in 7 games is inexcusable. I don't care what you say about how they played defensively. Those guys are paid to score goals, and they simply did not do that. Yeah, they lost John Tavares in game number 1, and then they lost game number 1, but then they won 3 straight, so you can't use that excuse. Yeah, they lost Jake Muzzin in the last game. Sure, it's gonna be harder to come out and play without maybe your best defender or one of them. TJ Brodie was also very good, but every team has to go through this, and lots of teams work through this adversity and can do it. And the defense wasn't even the problem in Game 7, so you can't use that excuse. It's just plain and simple. These stars did not show up. And if you have the stars not showing up, and you're not getting a bunch of depth scoring, you're gonna lose the series. There's a lot of blame to go around, but when you're paid like a superstar, and you're not playing like a superstar, or not even looking like you want to play like a superstar, a lot of that blame falls on you. Honestly, what more could you ask for? Your defense was solid. Defense was never the problem this series. Your goaltender was fantastic. This Maple Leafs team is a team that was supposed to score goals. That's what they did well all season. They had the top goal scorer in the league in Auston Matthews, and he had one goal this series? Absolutely inexcusable. And again, full marks and kudos to the Montreal Canadiens. They played that line hard. They made their life difficult. But the playoffs aren't supposed to be easy. And if these guys think that winning games in the playoffs is supposed to be easy, there needs to be big changes over this offseason. So, congratulations to the Montreal Canadiens. Congratulations, Habs fans. I do feel good for a lot of you. There have been a lot of you in the comments on these videos, and you've been very kind and fun to talk to, so here's your win, your series win, your season continues. And I'd say over here in Leafs Nation, we're sad, but I don't think sadness is even it. We're just fed up. Maybe sad after the game, sure, because it's new. It's a fresh wound, if you will. But the sadness dissipates quickly, and then you're just left with numbness. This was a team that a lot of fans could rally behind. It was a fun team to watch. There were a lot of great people on this team and on this roster. And now there's going to be changes made. That's just how off seasons go. There's free agents that may or not be re-signed. There's a draft. There's trades to be made. We don't know what it's going to look like next year. It would have been awesome for this team to go far, and they looked like they could possibly do it if they played the same way that they did in 1 through 4. But then we got classic Leafs in 5 through 7, and here we are. This team just simply was not good enough, and I don't think I have much more to say about it other than that for now. So what's next on this channel? Well, I'm probably going to take a day or two off, but then I will come back with more Leafs content. There will be some Blackhawks and IceHawks content. I will wrap up all 3 of their seasons, put a nice little bow on it, and then we'll start talking about the off season and different things that could happen there. Talk about different aspects about the 2020-21 season after the whole wrap up. And there will be more playoff content as well. I just won't be focusing on one team because I can't add another one to this. I went through a lot with my Blackhawks and then the IceHogs and then the Leafs this year. So the rest of the playoff content will just be broad, talking about all of the teams playing. And then there will also be the podcast episodes. Those are uploaded here or wherever you get your podcasts. So if you would like to hear more from me or from Center Ice, you can head on over to FromCenterIce.com. There's links to everything. If you're a social media person, you can follow us on all of the platforms. Those are all linked for you down in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Leafs fans, for suffering along with me. Thank you, Habs fans, for being so very kind in the comments, most of you. It's been fun talking about this series, you know, even with the sadness and the pain that comes along with Maple Leafs hockey, but getting to interact with y'all made it worth it. So I hope that even though the series coverage is over, you stick around. Obviously, I don't have another 3 questions. There is no other game for the Leafs. But I will catch you all in the next video. Bye, guys. Thank you all for watching. Please hit that subscribe button to catch more From Center Ice content. If you could, hit the like button on this video, maybe share it with a friend or two. And while you're here, check out the podcast playlist and catch up on some old episodes. We will catch y'all next time. Bye!